Welcome to the show. In this episode and latest installment, we'll be looking at the medical field and how technology affects practice. Before we dive in, please head to buymeacoffee.com/SamsonKing and support the channel there. If you are enjoying the content and want to support us, we appreciate it. So without further ado, why do doctors still use pagers? And how are hospitals still stuck in the 90s? About 85% of hospitals still rely on pagers. For most people, the pager represents a sad, humorous relic of the past. A reminder of the primitive time before cell phones, Google, and the Twitterverse. But for doctors, pagers are still an important part of everyday life. It's estimated that about 85% of hospitals still rely on pagers for communication. And during a recent episode of Post-Call Delirium, doctors wonder why. The first pagers, hefty 6-ounce boxes, were introduced to physicians in New York City in 1950. Over the next 4 decades, the device became a status symbol both inside and outside of the medical profession. After all, wearing one meant you were so in demand, you needed to be reachable anytime, anywhere. By 1994, there were more than 61 million pagers in service worldwide. But the advent of cellular phones led to a rapid decline in beeper use, and there are now a mere few million pagers still out there, many in hospitals, and all of them slowly and annoyingly beeping their way to obsolescence. If doctors were among the first adopters of paging technology, they will almost certainly be the last to abandon it. So although the pager seems out of date, doctors often take perverse pride in carrying one, at least at first. I still remember the excitement and anticipation of receiving my first pager. Medical students will say the same. It meant the years spent hunched over a textbook were over. They were entering the fray of patient care. That feeling quickly turned to irritation as they became painfully aware of the pager's shortcomings. So during medical residency shifts that span a day and a night, and then some, they've grown to despise their pager with a burning rage previously reserved for Boston drivers. The device's rude, sudden blare, with a knack for jolting them awake on call, just as they drift into a shallow, anxiety-ridden sleep, now triggers a visceral reaction. Their hearts leapt into overdrive, and their palms transformed into a sweaty wetland that occasionally facilitates accidentally dropping the bleeping thing. For people who don't have children, but they wonder if the way their tiny pager loudly dictates its demands around the clock is like having a baby. Except the beeper will never love them back. So surely, there's a better way for doctors to communicate. Yet pagers remain the maddening norm. Let's look at why. For one thing, they're low maintenance. The batteries in pagers don't need to be changed more than once every few weeks, even with heavy use. That means the system will work even during a disaster or power outage, when it might be hard to find a working outlet to charge a cell phone. Another major benefit struck recently as a doctor chatted on his phone while strolling through the bowels of the hospital. The building's seemingly unending corridors form a maze that leads unfortunate employees and occasionally a stray patient into the malodorous depths of the building. This labyrinth isn't exactly amenable to good cell phone service. And, as you turn the corner, your call will be dropped. That's no big deal when talking to a friend. But a doctor being on the line with another staff member, a drop call could lead to frustrated and possibly deadly confusion. Paging networks have more broadcast power than those for cell phones, which makes the signals better at penetrating buildings. They also rely on satellites to relay messages. As a result, pager messages are broadcast to multiple towers in a given area at the same time. That boosts reliability because even if one pager tower stopped working, another could pick up the satellite signal. The way pager systems work also makes it easy to send group messages that are received nearly instantaneously. In a hospital emergency, for example, if a patient had no pulse or very low blood pressure, a staffer would need to notify a full team of personnel as quickly as possible. Her best option would be to use a pager. We've all heard this on medical dramas and shows, paging Dr. So-and-so on a loudspeaker throughout the hospital or medical center. Of course, pagers have lots of disadvantages too. The most annoying part of pager-based messaging is the fact that it only works in one direction most of the time. The sender types a brief message into a web page or has a phone operator to do the same, and then a few seconds later the text arrives on the tiny screen of the recipient's pager with a loud beep. This can be a real hassle. Right? If a doctor is on a call, for example, someone might page him or her to find out whether or not they want to give a blood transfusion to somebody with a low cell count, or whether a patient should refrain from eating after midnight in preparation for the next day's procedure. But even answering these simple yes or no questions turns into a labor-intensive task. To respond, a doctor has to leave their patient's bedside, find a landline phone, dial the right extension, and wait for someone to pick up. And sometimes the callback number they receive sends them to the front desk or on the hospital floor, at which point they have to wait to be transferred. All of this so they can give a one-word answer to a question. This inconvenience really adds up. A colleague once tallied the number of pages he received during a single 12-hour overnight shift. He arrived at nearly 90 messages, or an average of one every 8 minutes, beeping at him as he admitted new patients and tried to take care of old ones. The time they lose in this constant back and forth between returning pages and doing other work can be a real drain. In fact, a 2010 survey of 60 junior doctors in Ireland confirmed that 59 of them preferred using mobile phones for work communications. So, even when a hospital administrator has the motivation to upgrade doctors' communications, the costs can be prohibitive. A New York City hospital recently paid between $10,000 and $20,000 to pilot a mere 16 smartphones, for example. Still, some hospitals have started trying new approaches. One is Tiger Text, a cell phone app that ensures secure messaging, and automatically deletes messages after a certain period of time. That's important for patient confidentiality. Special cell phones made for use in hospitals are another option. A VoLTE phone, for example, works a lot like a regular cell phone but has extra security to ensure privacy. We recently started using one of these systems in my workplace, and I was impressed by its efficiency, a doctor said. Still, he noticed that in some situations, pagers simply did a better job. For one thing, nothing beats that infernal bleeping when it comes to get a doctor's attention. On a VoLTE phone, as on a regular cell phone, text messages blend together in your inbox. And since they all have the same alert tone, important messages get lost among the myriad other correspondence practitioners receive daily. If the pager goes off, the beeping indicates the message may be important enough to be sent via page. By design, messages via VoLTE are often less urgent. Overall, there is a quicker response and greater attention to a pager when it goes off than to a VoLTE. For all its inconveniences, a pager still offers benefits that have yet to be replicated by more modern forms of communication. It provides an alert that can't be ignored, and a reliability that is crucial in the healthcare setting. And carrying a pager has symbolic value too. It connects today's doctors with those from the past and represents the notion that they'll always be available to take care of their patients. So, in the end, perhaps their excitement over the first beeper wasn't so misplaced after all. And I quote the doctor saying, "Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go return a few pages." Thanks for stopping by. That's all we have for you today. Please head to buymeacoffee.com/Samson King to support this channel. I'll throw the link up in the description. Again, thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you next time.